That's right. It's the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys, which means the last thing we do here on Dallas Cowboys Overtime, here on StarTelegram.com, is talk about football. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram sports columnist Mac Engel here for another edition, joined by my good friend and I guess just a glutton for punishment, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. Clarence, you're looking very good these days. How are you feeling? How you doing?
I'm well. There's no such things as an off season for the Cowboys, and really hasn't been that way, since '97.
Since you got on the
always
beat.
Something. It's always something.
It is always something.
Always something off the field.
Yeah, it's never good on the field, but it's always interesting off the field, and they make a lot of money. Hey, Bitcoin, by the way, that's very exciting for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's jump right into this latest fiasco and tragedy involving not the 2022 NFL draft, which is now only a matter of weeks away, but rather a draft pick from the draft class of 2021. I'm talking about second-round draft pick of the Cowboys, Mr. Kelvin Joseph. I noticed in the title there we have the Kelvin Joseph saga, which is an appropriate title. According to a story that you wrote and other reporters chimed in as well, Mr. Joseph was involved in a drive-by shooting last month, which involved the tragic death of a gentleman named Mr. Cameron Ray. Two people in the incident have been charged by police. Kelvin Joseph is not among them, but he has been named a person of interest. Clarence, Kelvin Joseph appeared at the Star for the first day of formal off-season team training activities. Where is he in this whole ordeal, both with the NFL and with the authorities?
Well, it's a wait-and-see situation. I talked to Dallas Police yesterday, and they said the investigation is still ongoing. Certainly, they've arrested two people, prompted, basically by Kelvin Joseph's testimony or conversation with the police. He was compelled to talk to the police because he was fingered in the video.
He was in the car.
Well, it's not the car thing. It was a fight, and police, and the drive-by shooting, and it was a cold case. No one had came up with any information for the last month. No one said anything. Police got some surveillance video about the people who were involved in the fight with Cameron Ray's buddies, and Kelvin Joseph's chain. He's a rapper, and his rap company, his chain was very visible. So everybody said, that's Kelvin Joseph, which prompted him and everyone else to say, you need to go talk to the police and tell them what you know. But you haven't said anything for a month. And so once he talked to the police on Friday and told them what he knew, they arrested someone Saturday. But per Texas law, if you're in a car when a drive-by shooting occurred, you can also be charged. As of now, he's not being charged. I don't know if he will be charged, but it's still a possibility. So it's a wait-and-see mode with that situation. Certainly the NFL is investigating, and the Cowboys are looking at it. And certainly they have some decisions to make themselves depending on, what happens, or even if nothing happens, because it's just a bad look all around. But the bottom line is right now, everybody's in a wait-and-see mode, and he did show up for voluntary workouts yesterday.
All right, let's start with this first question. Just from a football standpoint, some players are worth the hassle, and you can put up with stuff. Other guys aren't. Kelvin Joseph played last season as a rookie. He didn't start. I don't think he started at all, but he
started 2 games.
He started 2 games. Thank you.
The season, yes.
Did he show enough for the Cowboys to sit there and stand by him if this situation gets a little bit more complicated or potentially look even worse than it already does?
Well, that's just, what's going to happen. He's still a young player. He didn't show enough last year, but, he just turned 21 last year. He's 21 years old. So clearly has enough talent that they picked him in the second round, even after he'd been kicked off the team at LSU and went to Kentucky. I mean, I'm going to tell you, if you get kicked off at LSU kicks no more. Okay.
Do you know how hard it is to get kicked off at LSU?
There are red flags there.
Right.
LSU kicks no one off. Okay. When you can't play LSU, you got problems.
They are last chance you.
Do all of this and draft him anyway in the second round. So it tells you he has some skills, he has some talent. They wouldn't have taken a chance on him. And so, he's still a relatively young person, but, we'll have to see, how far this goes. And, this is not over. I mean, there could be, some civil stuff, with the family. Certainly, I don't think the NFL is going to let this go. You don't have to be charged to be suspended by the NFL as well. So, just him being in that situation, there's a chance that he may miss some games. Again, whether the Cowboys cut him or whether he's been suspended, cornerback has suddenly become a position of interest for the Cowboys in the draft.
Okay, let's walk through two different scenarios. When I first heard about this situation and I read about it, the first name that popped into my head, Clarence, right or wrong, was Ray Lewis. And that whole tragic situation, that was, I think, 20 years ago now, and the situation that he was involved with, which was a homicide. Now, he wasn't implicated, but his name was involved. Are we looking at any kind of Ray Lewis 2.0 situation, or are these situations totally different?
I think it's different. Number one, it won't be the saga of Ray Lewis because he's not
right.
The Ray Lewis.
Right. Ray was up here,
and it didn't happen at the Super Bowl. And you got to put the Super Bowl and all that other stuff into that basket of why that was such a huge story. And they had photos and everything else and the bloody white suit. And, it was so much.
Don't talk to the police and all that other stuff.
And the trial and everything else. I don't know if it's of that level. He was unarmed. Obviously Ray Lewis did not commit the murder. And there's no one who thinks that he committed the murder. But again, it's a situation of him being, not choosing friends correctly, making poor decisions, which we say go back to college, not being in a situation the right time. I don't know if you ever see the movie Boys in the Hood.
Sure, yeah.
You remember when Trey got out the car?
Oh, how can you forget that?
That's why Trey got out the car. Okay. Yes, you guys are going to go commit a murder. Stop the car. I'm getting out. I'm going home. This is not me.
Did Trey get out because he wanted to, or because his friends told him get out of the car? We don't want you to be a part of it.
Trey got on his own. They were all, everybody, no, Ice Cube, and all of them. They were getting ready to go and get revenge.
But I thought Ice Cube and those guys like Doughboy and all those guys wanted him out.
No, they did not.
They didn't.
They did not say no. They weren't thinking about doing the right thing. They were thinking about doing the right thing as far as avenging their brother's murder.
Right.
And Trey says, "Pull over, stop the car," and they understood.
That's it. They understood.
Now they understood. They didn't give him the hassle, but they didn't tell him to get out. But you have to be mad enough to make that decision. This is not my life. You got something else going on. This guy is getting ready to go to college and have a bright future. This is not your life. And certainly as an NFL football player with so much going for you, you can't put yourself in situations like that for sure.
Clarence, let's talk about something. This is obviously a reinforcement of the Kelvin Joseph situation. There's a reinforcement of a really horrible negative stereotype that exists for some, not all NFL players. And I realize you as an African-American, you don't speak for all African-American males, but Clarence, why does this problem continue to happen? I mean, this is one of you talk about, he's a rap star, and there were questions about him coming out of LSU. Societally, what needs to change for these kind of incidents to stop?
We don't even have enough time on the show to go down that road. And, I don't, again, I couldn't venture to guess in the time we had. I mean, obviously, he has to make better decisions. But if you dig back into his life and his role models and his family background, there are a lot of issues there that are playing a role in some of his decision making. But again, we can write a book on that.
When he came out of Kentucky, like you said, he was tossed out of LSU, which is not an easy thing to do. Was he a reach? He had some concerns coming out of Kentucky, but my impression was there was more focus and things like that. Were there other red flags about him that thought that this was a typical Jerry Jones gamble and maybe we got a steal here in a bargain?
There were no known jurisprudence issues.
Okay, that's a big one.
There were no known jurisprudence issues that we know about. We just know that he got kicked off. He, went AWOL on LSU. He was, obviously, had a rap career and was focusing on that and doing a lot of things, promoting his rap album and all the other stuff. But again, there were no known jurisprudence issues.
Is it your guess that he will be suspended by the NFL and probably miss some games as a result of this?
Yeah, it just depends on when they do it. I think that he's going to get pinched by the NFL, if not the Dallas police, at some point, for sure.
Let's move on. This has been a continuation of what I called, but you didn't agree, the worst offseason in the last 20 plus years for the Dallas Cowboys. It started with the head coach being second guessed by Jerry Jones. Not a very big deal. It continued on with the front office employee leaving, retiring, and then 2 weeks later it was revealed that he was accused of voyeurism with Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. There have been other off-the-field incidents that have been none too flattering for the Cowboys. Are you ready to say? Now, I said that it was the worst year because the Cowboys lost 2 of 3 games since the start of the year, including the home playoff games in San Francisco. Then they lost all these high-profile players. They traded Amari Cooper for nothing, which you have documented. Now getting a 5th-round pick for Amari is ridiculous. They got, I don't know how you want to call it, by Randy Gregory, their priority defensive end. Now they've got this Kelvin Joseph thing. But, hey, they did come up with an agreement with a Bitcoin company, so that's exciting. Are you ready to change your mind that this is the worst offseason year since you've covered the team?
I don't know that I've said it wasn't. I just know that I go back a long ways, and there were other trials and situations in the offseason. I mean, it's I go back to '96 when Michael Irvin was coming off his drug trial and everything else. So Barry Switzer getting arrested for
the gun
report. So I mean, there've been a litany of things that have happened over the course of the year. And I just want to reset one thing, going back to the Kelvin Joseph situation.
Yeah.
I don't want to paint. You asked me about why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
I would say that the great majority of players do good, do the right thing.
I totally agree.
Wilson's getting killed for being a square. Okay.
Why is that? Why is that? Because
so I don't want to. So I mean, you look at the great majority of the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, they don't have any issues. So let's not say why does this keep happening.
And you're right.
That's unfair.
It is unfair because you're right. You're right. It is an unfair thing to say.
So I just wanted to reset that for a second.
No, and I'm glad you did because you're right. And I think one of the things that I know I've run into as a sports journalist with fans sometimes is that I think people in my position, just a white dude, we fall victim to sometimes painting every player, let's call it what it is, a black player with this massive brush that they're all Kelvin Joseph situations, which it couldn't be anything further from the truth. I have conversations. We're going to go down this rabbit hole. I have conversations with people I know. I wouldn't call them buddies of mine, but friends, but people that I know who seem to think that it's all that way. And that's not fair because I think if you looked at the vast majority of players, most of them are pretty boring, decent guys who, are just trying to have a life and trying to play in the NFL and maximize their earning potential and have a career for as long as they can. The problem is, and you and I will both know this, the Kelvin Joseph situation, that's the one that gets the most notoriety because it's interesting. It's criminal. But it does reinforce a really unfortunate stereotype that a lot of other players have to deal with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. But again, when you know better, you do better. And we know better, and we know that that's not the case, and that's not most players. That's not the great majority of players. It's probably less than 5% of the players who have these issues. If you look at there are 90 players in the Cowboys locker right now. There's 70-80% of them maybe black players. They don't have those issues.
They don't. And
so he is not the poster child of what's wrong with the black athlete, what's wrong with black players. So I just wanted to reset. I didn't really answer that right, and I wanted to reset that. But as far as this offseason is concerned, and you hit on from, I was just talking to the Cowboys, one of the people last week when this was going down, they just, they weren't even talking about Mike McCarthy stuff. They were just saying since the Rich Dalrymple stuff and the Jerry Jones stuff since, February, just how it's just one thing after another and off the field stuff that's just rocked this organization and it's just garnered all the headlines. And then you add in the fact that they really have not added anybody in free agency. And then you add in, what happened, the questions concerning Mike McCarthy and Randy Gregory reneging and going somewhere else. It's just been one thing after another for this organization. So in that respect, it's certainly been an off season. They put the off and off season. They put the off and off season.
They put the awful and off season. Yeah. All right, let's go to the last topic. Let's talk about football. I know law of averages says there's got to be something positive the Cowboys have done They have started formal team activities per the NFL, agreement with the NFLPA. These are team activities now going on at the Star. They're not just captain-led activities by Dak Prescott or other players. Clarence, there's one positive out there that I'm falling for, and I'm probably stupid. I'm falling for the Dante Fowler signing. That I think maybe there is something there. And I go back to one thing that when I was covering the team with you, Bill Parcells said it. If somebody else you liked a certain player, and you trust that guy who liked him, and you can get him, go look at him. Dan Quinn liked Dante Fowler. I think Dan Quinn's reputation as a defensive coordinator, considering how well this defense played last season, that gives me at least some pause to think maybe there's something there. Do you buy that, or did you just think it was the case of the Cowboys reaching and getting a cheap deal and taking a flyer on somebody who was inexpensive?
Well, I think they can be both, and I think that certainly Dan Quinn likes him. He's here because of Dan Quinn. We talked to him yesterday. Dan Quinn gave him a fresh start. He admits he needs a fresh start. It's another opportunity for him. The guy's been on 4 different teams. He had one really outstanding season. That was in Los Angeles. Of course, that was playing next to Aaron Donald. He got a big free agent contract after that. Signed with the Falcons, had 7 sacks the past 2 years combined. Basically was benched last year. He blames it on injuries and a lot of different things, but he has not lived up to potential. Certainly there's something there. He was a former first-round pick of Jacksonville. Right. Dan Quinn is known since high school. He recruited him in Florida. He was his first, college defensive line coach before he left and went to Seattle to be the defensive coordinator of 2 Super Bowl teams there. So, yeah, Dan Quinn likes it. Dan Quinn sees potential in him. But there's also the fact there's no illusion to think that he's coming in to be some savior for this defense because he has not done that. He's not been that guy. Hopefully he can be part of, a rotation that can help get to the quarterback. They're still going to address a quarterback in the draft. A pass rusher in the draft. But, it's a good, solid signing. But I don't know if this is the biggest positive of the offense. I think the biggest positive of the offseason is Dak Prescott's healthy. I mean, that there's no question that's the biggest thing the Cowboys have going for them. That's the biggest thing they're banking us. All they keep talking about. We got a full offseason with Dak Prescott for the first time in 3 years. 2 years ago was holding out. Last year he was
ankle on the shoulder.
He was rehabbing. So this is the first time since Mike McCarthy showed up that Dak Prescott is going to be there for the full offseason program, throwing with his teammates, things he hasn't been able to do the past couple of years. Have time on task with receivers and do all that other stuff. So, they feel good about that, and they should feel good about that. So that's the biggest positive.
I think I read this right, and if I got this one wrong, please correct me. You guys had an opportunity to talk to Dalton Schultz yesterday, correct?
Yes.
And Dalton said, I'm paraphrasing here, I couldn't believe he said it. He didn't think the offense was better without Amari Cooper. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, he said we're not a better offense we're a better offense with Amari Cooper. Who doesn't think that? Who doesn't think that?
No, it's the fact that he said it. I mean, I agree with him. We've all said it. It's the fact that he said it and the fact that he owned it rather than just saying, hey, we're still going to be a great offense. And spinning it. He didn't even try to spin it. He's like, no, we're not better without this guy.
But he said that we can have success. We have to step up and, be more comfortable and do a lot of things. But yeah, there's no question about that. But I mean, Stevie Wonder can see that they're not a better offense without Mark.
I give him credit for being honest. Has he signed that? Tag,
yeah,
by the
of course.
way?
He signed that franchise tag as soon as they gave it to him. You're not gonna pull this back from me, okay? I'm gonna sign $10.9 million.
All right.
Then we'll talk about the rest. We'll still work on a long-term deal, but right now I'm getting this 10.9. He's getting that 10.9.
Yeah, he got 10.9 million to make a guy real honest, real quick. Like I said, I can't believe he didn't make any attempt to spin it. He just owned it. Now I know probably Amari's his guy and he wants to be, give a shout out to a guy he likes. But the fact that he owned it and just said, yeah, we're not as good without this guy. Well, they got a 5th-round pick for him. That's the other part. I'm like, a 5th-round pick? You got other receivers going from Kansas City to Miami. They're getting 50 first-round picks, and the Cowboys got a 5?
Well, that's all because the Cowboys had already showed their hand and said we're going to cut him, and we have to cut him at the deadline because they didn't want to pay his option bonus and all that stuff. Now, just a peek behind the curtain with the Dalton Schultz thing. I asked him about the offense being better without Amari Cooper, because he started talking about, we're going to be more, we're in the system. We know the system. Guys are going to step up. We're more comfortable. It's just a matter of our IQ. And I said, is that why you think you guys can be better at it? So I didn't say that. I didn't say we're better. We're not a better offense without Amari Cooper. So that's kind of how it came about.
Very good. Look at Clarence setting Dalton Schultz up to sit there and say disparaging things about the state of the Dallas Cowboys offense, because Clarence hates the Dallas Cowboys. I know you get accused of that all the time.
I mean, it's silly. I don't know where they get this from.
I don't know. I know you get it a lot.
Why don't you go cover another team?
Right? Cover the Stars.
No, move. They want me to move.
Oh, they want you to move.
Go city and cover another team. I'll cover the Rams, because I keep talking about the Rams. Right. I need to go cover the Rams.
Well, this is fun. Well, hopefully next week we can actually talk about a little bit more about football and the coming up NFL draft, where the Cowboys are going to fill 7 needs with 5 picks or something like that. I don't know how they're going to do it. But again, we have missed one thing before I wrap up this episode of Dallas Cowboys Overtime. Why have we not talked about the Cowboys signing their punter, Brian Engel? There's one of the reasons people don't like you. You never focus on the punter.
On Twitter with this. You're trolling.
I'm not trolling.
You're
positive.
trolling.
Guys,
it's
great
almost
punter.
like asking Errol Spence. It's almost like asking Errol Spence why is he the only one that's won championships at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, who would ever do that?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, by the way, real quick, you were at the fight. You were ringside at the Spence-Ugas fight. You've seen some ugly injuries before. Man, I was watching the fight on my phone, and that Ugas.
Did you pay for it? Or did you steal the stream?
I can't remember. That was a long time ago. I was a different person. I'm rehab. Ugas took a shot to the eye, and it was swelling.
A shot? Several shots.
Okay, several shots to the eye. Have you seen a more gruesome injury? Well, you saw the Allen Hurns broken leg with you were covering that playoff game with me. That was pretty ugly.
We've seen some bad boxing injuries. I've seen people come out and look with pizza face. I mean, it's just like,
man, that thing was pretty ugly.
It was ugly, but that's the damage. It does not look like he's doing a lot of damage. He's just uppercutting. But over the course of rounds, it takes its toll on you. He has a fractured orbital bone. Okay.
Last 2 losers to leave AT&T Stadium left with fractured orbital bones.
Yeah,
one to Canelo Alvarez, and the other one, this one, to Errol Spence. Are we going to see Spence and Bud Crawford fight?
We are going to see them fight. It's just a matter of when and a matter of where. Talking to their people, I think it's going to be in Vegas, not AT&T Stadium. Yeah. I would love for it to be here, but they can make more money in Vegas. But the fight that we've been waiting for, the most anticipated fight in a long time, could be the beginning of a trilogy. From Sugar Ray to Hearns, and something that between 2 great American fighters that we're going to see several of those. But yeah, it's coming.
I hope you're right. And that one I will not be watching on my phone. Yeah. All right, next week we'll talk about the NFL draft and hopefully not all this other crap off the field. Clarence, this was fun. For Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. He's Clarence Hill. I'm Mac Engel. For all of your Cowboys coverage need, check us out on StarTelegram.com. We'll catch you next week.